Okay, today we'll go through taking off the clutch cover and the stator cover and some of the gubbins inside. And don't worry too much about where these bolts go, you don't have to record them. You'll see when you put them back in that each one is sticking out about 10mm, 12mm or half an inch or so. If it's sticking out more than that, it means the bolt's too long, and obviously if it goes all the way in, the bolt's too short. So it's quite difficult to get it wrong. And here I'm taking off the 4 bolts that hold the clutch bearing. Now they're very long, so you don't have to worry too much about the springs jumping out, but you should undo them all in sequence. Don't just take one out, because that will make it tilt at an angle. So basically just undo each one a little bit at a time. This is actually a bearing, so you need to make sure it's clean and runs freely. And here I've turned the engine round, and we'll take off the crankshaft position sensor. It's just 2 bolts, and you follow the wire from up here, tucks into the little clips, and then you just wiggle it out. There's an O-ring in here, and I like to put a smear of silicone grease on O-rings when I put them back, and of course pop the 2 bolts back in so you don't lose them. And then it's just a repeat of the other side. Remove the cover bolts, and then when you pull this off you'll feel some resistance because it's magnetic from the stator. And you hear that little dink, that's the spacer that's dropped down just there. So just pop that back on the shaft and then put the shaft into the gear. That gear is actually the starter gear, so the starter motor runs that. And that turns the bigger gear on the flywheel to start it. And then remove the nut. Right, next job is to get this flywheel off, and that requires a special Honda tool that's 32mm that screws on the outside here, and then there's a bolt that pushes on the inside and pushes it off like that. Fortunately I haven't got one of those, and I don't want to lever it off the casing, because if we mark this casing you're kind of in big trouble, so I ain't doing that. But what I have got is one of these kind of pullers, which is it's got arms. In theory it goes there and pulls out, but unfortunately there's not enough room to get it in on this side, so I'm good here but not here. So what I is gonna do is cut this down so it fits in, so it can go in and then turn. And this is the fattest bit down here, so if I cut that, basically just thin that arm out. Yeah, it'll make it a bit weaker, but hey, these things cost pennies. Okay, I'm going to cut that. Okay, I'm back. So what I had to do, you can see, I basically took some off this side out, that's still hot, so it's much thinner than that, and a tiny bit off the length. Now it goes in and I can turn it and slide it around, and then this one can go here. And all being well, it should enable us to get this off. Of course, the other thing is it's not quite big enough. It would be nicer if it was a bit fatter. I might just give a squirt in there of a penetrating fluid. There's a bit of tension in it now. I just need to be really careful not to put any tension on the case, because if I split this case, I'm in trouble. So I'm just making sure it's not touching that case at the bottom. Right, I had hoped it would be easier than that. Because that is quite a lot of pressure. Sometimes a shock of an impact does make it come off when it might otherwise not. Whoa! Well, that's either come off or broken. One of the two. By the way, I didn't say before, but put the nut on, because then it prevents any damage to the end. Right. So I hadn't realised that the starter ring, this is the starter motor ring. That little gear there is what starts it. Well, here we go. See, even in there, look, can you see? I don't know whether you can see that in the light, but there's see, this is why I had to do this. Can you see? There's all little bits of aluminium in there. That's all tiny flakes of crap. Little tiny flakes of tiny flakes of aluminium from the piston. Should point out this is magnetic, because this is what creates the electricity. This is the magneto, and that will spin this way, not that way. See where the chain goes around. And you've got these needle rollers here. Pretty cool. And then I can have a good look at this chain. Some of the links have a tiny bit of slop in them. But I'll measure it against the book, see what it says. Another one here, look, I flipped the engine over now to take the clutch off, and this is the oil. It's kind of a filter, but it just basically spins the oil and any bits get stuck out. Now I've just wiped out in there. I'm not sure whether you can see, but can you see there's all shiny bits of aluminium in that? So I don't think I'm going to find a smoking gun, if you like. It's not like the piston sort of blew a hole in it and it came out in one chunk. I think it just literally vaporized that hole. If you picture it, that where is that piston? The piston got so hot that it blew a hole, and I think it's just that gap just vaporized. I get a bit grumpy when they do stuff like this. I mean, obviously I'm not a proper engineer, so I don't know why they've made this kind of like special nut here, why it couldn't have been a regular nut. And of course I don't have that. So I'm going to take an old cheapy 19mm socket, which is about the same sort of diameter as that, and I'm going to have to grind it down to produce 4 lugs. So you can see, so now it's got like castellations on it, if you like. And like I say, this was a 90mm socket, and they don't need to be very deep. Then you need a wedge. Now, they do make a special tool for this as well, but you just need to wedge these gears to stop them from turning. Now this is a piece of copper. You can use copper or aluminium. Do not use steel. You cannot use steel because that risks chipping one of the teeth or something like that. There we go. Now I need to hold it in quite tight because obviously the engine is going to want to move. Whoa, okay, so that's tight. I'm going to use, I hate to say this guys, but you really are going to have to get a little impact driver at some point, because there are just so many jobs like this that are just so much easier to do if you've got an impact driver. Don't like it when things are this tight. There you go. The fender, crikey, it's very slim. Very weird that it was that tight. So yeah, so you can see now how that fits in there like that. Of course, you risk damaging this nut by using a homemade tool, especially one that you make quickly like this. And I could have gone deeper. In fact, I will. Now I have this off, I will cut that a bit deeper and make it a bit better for next time. Don't forget to take your pin out. And that should just slide off. And that also has splines and a gasket. I'm going to take this gasket off carefully and make a pattern because it's torn there, look. And then I'm going to store all these patterns on the old computer. See, same again, I'm going to pop that back on there and that, just to protect that end thread while I'm rolling it around on the bench. And the more you can do like that, the less you've got on the bench, the less you're going to lose, the less chance there is of forgetting where something goes. That doesn't weigh anything, it's curious. Okay, now I'm going to undo the clutch center bolt. And again, I'm going to use my Magic Wizzy tool. But there is a special tool for holding this to stop it from rotating. Although I don't know why you can't use the pin there, the same as last time. Cannot think of a reason why you can't do that. It rotates the other way, so in theory. Anyway, it should be okay with this. Let's give it a go. Ah, I see. Yeah, because that's the clutch, isn't it? Yes, that's why. Okay, you learned something. This clutch obviously spins independent of the gears, so you need to hold it in here. Don't use these pillars because they're not very strong. Let's just see if it whizzes off. Yeah, it's off. Okay, so you don't need special, well, you need a special tool, you need one of these. Aha. Now then, does this all lift off as one, or have you got to lift it out one at a time? Okay. Cool. Same deal. I need to take that off, I don't know actually. But same deal for now. Put the nut back on. God, it's scary shit when you get this deep into an engine, I have to say. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of stuff in there. I think I can just rinse all that out. I don't think I need to particularly go crazy on that. Oh yeah, that's the thing. Save plastic tubs. Trust me, you can never have too many. Something else you can do, if like me you're a bit afraid of remembering where stuff goes,
you can do that, because then you kind of can't screw it up. Of course, that doesn't help you with a little Woodruff key. These are called Woodruff keys, and it stops, it goes in the slot in the gear and stops things from turning. Okay, now I can see the main, this is the main crank bearing, and this was the thing that I'm a bit worried about, having aluminium in there. I don't see anything straight away, but right, next one is this one, I think. It's just a balancer shaft. Same deal. Right, to get this balancer shaft nut off, you have to do it before you take this one off, I've learned. So same again really, something copper or aluminium in there, and hold it, crack it loose. Yep. See, this is why you're watching this, so I can make the mistakes so you don't have to. Hot washes. Now, I'm hoping I can just take that off. Yeah, all good. That is one hell of fancy gear. There's a spring in there, something to do with absorbing the shock. And there's also a spacer and another Woodruff key. Pop that on there in case we don't need to take it out. Right, same deal. I'm going to put a zip tie through there, because then it will, because things like these spacers, it's easy to see now, but when you come back to it, and it's not always clear to see from the book either. So if you can do stuff like that, you will be thankful later. And also that has a little key on it too. Right, next is the gear change mechanism. The shaft sticks out the other side of the engine, and you need to clean it, the seal around it, and make sure there's no rust or anything on the, because there's a seal each side, you see, so if there's any crap on the selector mechanism, the shaft, when you pull this out like this, let's see what I'm doing in a second. Wait! Right, that part was sticking out on the other side, so if there's all crap on there, when you pulled it through, there's a risk that all that crap could end up in the engine down there. And things like that, that little washer there, man oh man, you need not to forget those. A tiny bit of wear on there, look. Otherwise that's okay. So, a piece of piston and a piece of Honda bond. That's a piece of Honda bond. See, even from the factory, that's a piece of sealant. When they stick these cases together, they put sealant, and that can block an oil way. Just gonna do a close-up of that. Not sure which one you're supposed to undo first here, but I don't like springs. Okay, so that goes there, and there, and there. And then it goes around that. That's going to be interesting to get back in. Okay, because I don't want to lose the location of that little washer there, I'm going to very difficult when it's all oily. So I'm just going to take that out like that, and then it will all stay in the same place. I'm assuming that that little dint there means it's in neutral when the wheel is there, because that's the only one that's like that. Put that back in there.
Alright, and do a bit more on the other side.
Same again really, I can just put them in there like that and lay them in the tub. Just gives you some tilt. Can I just chain off here? I think that just lifts off, yeah. Check that seems okay. Remarkably light condition really, considering it ran out of oil. Okay, so that can just come out. You just look it over the nut, up and out. Now what I've got to do is decide whether I'm going to keep this chain, because I think you don't want any movement. Like you can't see it, but I can just feel a tiny bit of movement there and out. If I would say, I don't know, if I order a new one and it's the same, it would be like, but I don't know. But it's such a crucial part of the engine, I'm not sure I want to risk putting it back together. Okay, then there's another big bearing.
Right, I'll take a bit of a break here, and next time we'll split the casings. Right, thanks for watching, and if you found that useful or interesting, you know what to do. See you in the next one.